Right, welcome to Green Sunrise Podcast. Today I have Keith from Cmon the Hoops. Brian Mitchell is also in again, which is brilliant for Brian to be in here. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. We're nearly Christmas Day, but Christmas is a great time for a lot of people, but it's a very difficult time as well for many, many people. So no doubt we'll cover that off. Um, I'm really looking forward to having Keith on. Me and Keith have been discussing and putting the world to right there before we've come on. He's a great guy and does a brilliant podcast, and I think this is just going to be a fantastic episode.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's just so happens that this episode is going to be called "Come On the Health" because I know that you do a football podcast. It's a successful Celtic supporters football podcast, but you personally, mate, has helped me in my own mental health journey. I think I've mentioned it in the past. Sometimes I've been struggling with stuff. Me and you've been speaking in the background. It helped me massively by just simplifying some stuff for myself. So, Keith, thank you so much. Keith from Come On the Hoops, thank you so much for coming on today's episode. How are you?
Of course, look, it's a different experience for me. I'm delighted you've asked me to come on. It's been months upon months prepping for this, but looking forward to chatting to you and Brian. And it's a good title to have because it is coming up to Christmas time, and I'm just thinking about Christmas right now. I'm thinking, right, financially we be there, and I also have my nanny's anniversary tomorrow as well of 3 years. So we'll have a chat about what we can. It's
Yeah.
obviously put the awareness out there for everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you
So,
for calling me young, Keith. Thank you for calling me young. I like you even more
That's
now, my friend.
that's it.
so and Brian, you are young. You are young. We're
Young
all
at
quite
heart,
young at
as the
heart.
Bluebell said, young at heart.
Young as
Yes.
Martin O'Neill,
It's
eh?
important. It's important today that for anybody watching, if you're trying to work out what this podcast episode is going, it's not going to be about football. Football will be part of some of it, but this is again mental health. It's about the effects that some players and men and managers go through. People, actual people, on a day-to-day basis, a daily basis. Sorry, and it's not about football, about mental health. So we're going to talk about some certain players. One of the that I thought we were going to really talk about, and then it ended up being like, do you know what? So many more. It's like just Brian. You've mentioned two when we're just before we got on this podcast episode. Before we started, you and it was like, oh, and there's him, and there's him as well. So we were actually going to talk about Bobo Baldi. Originally, we started talking about look, it's happening with Bobo Baldi. Something that he's been involved in a story with him, and there's been skills involved. There's a psychiatric as well. He's in the best place where he should be. I don't know much about it, but Keith, what about yourself? What did you think of the Bobo Baldi story when it kicked off? You mentioned it in your
I was
channel.
I was quite shocked to be honest with you. Like obviously the story broke about nearly 3 months ago. Um, First of all, I just paid me thoughts and prayers to his family. Obviously,
Yeah,
it was outside of school, but look, regardless how much money you have, regardless your reputation of as a person, there could be one thing in your mind that could trigger the downfall of yourself, and it's about getting that confidence, about getting that, seeing that light and picking yourself up. As much as you get punched down the ground, it's the punch that you get up and hit the person back with. And what
yeah,
that person is your brain, giving that dark side, that slap and saying, I can do it. But Bobo, what a guy. He's obviously brought a lot of memories to a lot of football fans in Glasgow and across the world, and to even his country, Papua New Guinea as well. So I was in shock, to be honest, just in shock with it.
Keith, can you remind us what happened? What was it that happened outside the school? And because I've heard rumours, there was a car involved as well. There was a car incident. It was one of the parents. I'm not too sure. Do you know what actually happened with the incident?
It's just similar to basically he was threatening his daughter, and there was words exchanged between a family that was at the school, and I think he got out his car, and and then obviously the police was called, ambulance was called, and then he's been in that unit since. But I was speaking to Stinian Petrov about it. Stinian Petrov said he should, just being sarcastic, saying he should have been in there a long time ago because he has a big temper. And I don't know if that's just the type of character Bobo has always been, on and off in his profession as a footballer. But just a shock, just really a shock.
Yeah, and as you say, there's maybe things that's happened from, and maybe it should have been dealt with differently, and he should have got the help that was out there, and maybe that just wasn't there in time. And now that he's getting that help, and other kind of other players that it's happened to as well. Again, try to not mention too many Celtic names, but Neil Lennon, Alan Thompson, and stuff like that. There were different types of mental health issues, wasn't there? And different types
I think, but if I could just come in, sometimes,
yeah,
I mean,
Brian.
I think that's notable about what Stilian Petrov said, and I think very much guilty. Everybody's guilty of that, especially a sort of that football culture. I mean, for years, people have been entertained by great characters, as was always the thing. Mavericks, guys like George Best, and Paul Gascoigne. I'm just thinking of people who Stan Bowles. I'm just thinking about people who fantastic football players, but troubles off life, alcohol, drugs, and you wonder if these are demons. But people just sort of used to always think, oh, he's a bit of a lad, and look the way he plays, and he's got a bit of swagger. I think as human beings, we a lot of times put up these barriers and try and hide behind things when there's demons inside us all. And for high profile people, which is really who we're covering tonight, for people that are just constantly scrutinised, that if they go in for the local shop or go to put petrol in their car, they're going to get approached. Somebody's going to say something. There's a lot of people who quite recently in high profile positions are finding it difficult, having to resign from their positions because families getting abused. So maybe Stilian Petrov's just been a bit, try to be a bit sarcastic or try to play it down, and no doubt as an ex-teammate feels it really hard and difficult. But I think because people earn a lot of money and because they're very good at football, people just can't accept that people in such great positions also suffer from, serious mental health problems.
Yeah.
Like everybody.
Exactly. Like at the end of the day, these are human beings. You may feel like they're hiding behind a mask, but when they go home and if they're looking at social media or a family member's being messaged about a form of abuse or a hate crime, like it's horrible for them. At the end of the day, they're just there to try to do a job to their best ability. And I find like, especially in football clubs or even artists, as you said, if they're going to a shop and someone comes up and says, "Can I have a selfie?" and then there's tons of people wanting selfies, it's a bit overwhelming for these people because maybe they're on a stage and they're not you. You can see 1,000 people in front of them, but having that person right in their face could be a bit too much for them at times. They're putting that entertainment face on and then having it in their personal life. You don't need it.
I've got my John Lennon hat on tonight, right? And this is actually an official Beatles product, by the way, just a bit of bought Matthew Street in Liverpool. But I was, again, for the 1,000th time watching the Beatles anthology today. And George Harrison is the bit that he was just sick of being, as he puts it, constantly having to be fab. One of the Fab Four. By 1966, he chucked it. Basically, he chucked it. Sergeant Pepper came out, and he had, his heart was no longer in it, simply because of the intrusion in his life. And he talks about, there was a period that John Lennon went through, and you can actually see it in footage. John Lennon's put on a lot of weight. It was a time when, he made the comment that Jesus, the Beatles were now being seen as bigger than Jesus, and, threats in his life and everything else. And he went through a really that period, and they were going on tours all the world, and wherever they went, everybody, there was always some sort of complaint about them and saying that they were wrecking some sort of tradition or other. And to me, they're the greatest music band that the world has ever seen, and it's unbelievable to think that at their very height, they were like, I just don't want this anymore. I am done."
Yeah.
And I think people should be conscious of that and try and give people
Yeah.
their space.
Yeah, and that's
100%.
it. When people give you their time, or they're asking for your time, they're taking energy out of you, because you're constantly having to give that energy, and that eventually, in any line, any daily basis or day-to-day thing, it's going to really grind you down, man. It's going to bring you to your knees, in a sense. With regards to other players over the years, we talk about some have like maybe full-on addictions, depression is a thing, suicide as well, suicidal ideation must be really high, we high pressure, and we don't ever really speak about it, and it's like over the last few years become prevalent that now mental health is a massive thing for everybody, right? And now there's so many different organisations out there for you to go to. Is it for you, Keith, for example, over the years, is there anything that you can share with us that's maybe really you've been struggling with? And is there anybody else? Obviously, I said at the start of the episode, you helped me.
Yeah.
I practice mental health daily, right? Doesn't mean to say I'm an expert at it. Sometimes I'm on my knees, right? And sometimes I'm really struggling with my life. Is there anything that you can share with people that's helped you?
Yeah. So in 2017, something happened in my family that triggered me for about 4 years, and I wouldn't open up about it. And I just kept going on. I kept cycling the bike to work. I used to cycle 30k back and forth to work, and I kept saying to myself, everything's gonna be okay. Forget about it. And I got to the tipping point where I actually had a mental breakdown in work. I had to take 2 years off work and had to get counseling for 2 years because I just couldn't get myself out of bed. I wasn't eating. I went to my doctors, went on antidepressants. They made me feel worse. I actually felt more angry inside than feel numb. And what happened was around 2020, obviously when the biggest, you could say, the mental health epidemic kicked in, when everyone felt like, oh, this is cool for a couple of months, and we're all starting to feel lonely mentally. I moved out of my mum and dad's house, moved in with people, and what happened was I just started struggling, like turning to alcohol on a daily basis, going on TikTok live, thinking that I was building an ego for myself. Deep down inside, I'm putting this face on to try bring positivity to people, but I'm crumbling inside. I'm using alcohol as a form of hiding my emotions. And then by 2021, I said enough's enough. I've cried. I used to like break down on on live videos. And yeah, it's good to get your feelings out, but at the same time, you need to say to yourself, is this the way forward? I'm meant to be a role model for my two daughters. I'm meant to be a good son. I'm meant to be a good brother. I'm meant to be a good friend. And if I'm not showing this to myself, how am I meant to flourish and show positivity to others? So I decided back in 2021 to this is enough. Enough's enough. I'm going to make a big decision in my life. And I moved to Scotland and I never looked back. It's the best thing I've ever done. And I could see it benefiting me as a human being, where I've came over here. I had a difficult couple of months where I couldn't settle, couldn't keep a job down. Homesick was a big factor, even though I had family and friends. Even though you think you've them friends, family and friends around you, you're still lost. So it was about getting character. But what I done was, before I moved over, I done a campaign of selling stickers of my own brand, and I raised up to €550 for a place called aware.ie. They talk to people about mental health and stuff. They're a helpline. And it was the best phone call I've ever done, because I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, that woman having that 20 minutes on the phone to me changed my life around. She changed my life around, and that gave me that spur to say, you know what, you may feel like you're a million miles away in your own head. You take that small step, and it's a step to big success on the way.
That's brilliant. Just a wee minute, boys. I've actually just half a wee bit of technical difficulties. Cancel that now. I've just noticed on my screen there. So sorry, Keith. Bob has just entered as well. Bob, how are you doing?
Bob, how you doing, big man? Bob,
Good
how
day,
we
mate.
doing?
Ryan, it's always a pleasure to see you. And Keith,
Oh,
first
it's
time
great.
I've heard you and met you, mate. Good on you, pal.
Thank you very
Great to see
much.
you,
Good to
pal.
meet you.
Listen, sorry for
Bob,
coming on late, Paul. I couldn't find my hair
all right, Bob.
straighteners.
That's fine, mate. We didn't get kicked off too late anyway, Bob. All right, mate. Thank you,
Right, pal.
thank you for joining us as well. And I should have said at the start of the episode to Brian and Keith, thank you for giving me your Friday night, because it's close to Christmas. So thanks again to you guys for freeing up the time. Bob, we've not spoke about much because we've only just gone the last 20 minutes. So we're still speaking about obviously the thing with Bob Baldy and other players. Bob, you're not a football guy, so it's to get you onto this episode as well. Recently, we're talking about what Keith saying it was things came over the last few years. 2006, you said, Keith, that something happened to your
2017,
family.
and then 2017, and then I eventually opened up to me family and friends about it, and then it just gave me once I got that emotion and that stress off my head, I felt like I've opened a new doorway to say, right, that's done now. We can manage that better, and this is why I've always done it in any social media platform. I always try to put out mental health awareness, saying, look, you have a phone. Don't, if someone's giving you online abuse, way I look at it is you can either take it with a pinch of salt, that's only pixels on the phone. That they're not going to say that to your face, or the other, you just laugh at it. Laugh at it. It's only pixels at the end of the day. They're not going to come through your door and kick your head in. You got to think about how much of a character it is. I always say the best tool on social media is the block button. And if they keep coming back, keep blocking them, and eventually it just shows how much of a character you are by not letting these people get to you.
Yeah. And Bob, you're very much from talking about, you're very clear, and we spoke about you in your episode, Bob. You're very clear in your message of what's going through. Like, you're quite articulate, so is probably the best description. You're articulate to tell people what's happening with yourself. You obviously struggling with EUPD, emotionally unstable personality. But Bob, how would you describe? Because you're still dealing with that every single day. How you keeping now? Talking about your mental health.
As you know, my background, who doesn't know my background, I'm 52, nearly 53. I was 48 when I was diagnosed. I've been in the acute psychiatric ward 11 times, which has been a humbling experience. I've had 6 suicide attempts. I've got a broken marriage, don't see my kids. Mental health was horrendous. I stepped to the doctor, like yourself, Keith, when I was 34, because something wasn't right. And I went into the office and I says to the guy, for the first time in my life, I couldn't talk. I says, I don't feel right. And it was depression, mate. On a massive concoction of meds for years, never worked. Therapy, never worked. I moved to this area, and the mental health care down here is 20 years in front of where I stayed in North Lanarkshire. When I was given that diagnosis in the hospital, that consultant, her and I used to fight like cat and dog. She says to me about it. She was sitting with her colleagues, a quick one, and the conversation was regarding UPD. She thought about me. She went back. She looked at my past nursing records, and she says, "Bob, you've got a thing called EUPD." I says, "Right, okay." Didn't know what it was. Didn't know what BPD was. Explained it. She says, "You've got it clearly. There's 9 traits. If you hit 5, the criteria is a red flag, and you've got a diagnosis on this." I says, "Go and get me information." They brought it back. If there was 20 boxes on this, boys, I would have ticked every one of them. It's a full array of emotions and how you take on board what people say, just like what you were saying there, Keith, and how that affected me. She says to me, it's not curable, but you have to understand it and learn to live with it. And I was all right with that. I've got the information, but it's about how I deal with it. The four of us could have it. It's how you do it. I don't allow people now to get into my head. I don't like confrontation. I don't like arguing. I don't overthink stuff like we all do. We curse people sitting in a house like this. It's done something to us. It's only you that's doing that to yourself. And when your head's not in a good place and your mental health's not in a good place, that is like adding a hurricane inside a tornado in my head. So I've got good care. I've got meds balanced now. It's not about that. It's about learning to live with who I am at present.
Yeah.
And it's rewiring me.
Yeah. But what about yourself? What would you say? Obviously, we're going to speak about a few other things. What's your thoughts so far?
Whenever Bob comes on and speaks, I always find it very humbling because of his honesty and how he deals with his circumstances and the condition he faces. And Keith mentioning about opening up to family and having kids, which I think is always the most difficult role in the whole world. It always breaks my heart when Bob mentions that he can't get access to his kids. That must be horrific. But we spoke before privately about that, me and Bob. But what Keith was saying also about, and both of them sort of had the same thing as Bob alluded to, is that how you deal with it, but dealing with other people. And it goes along with that mental toughness. We're talking tonight about high-profile people, and I think to be in those circumstances, they must have enormous, and that probably which makes them as successful initially, great mental toughness, and obviously even the best people in the world, which I would certainly say Keith and Boab are, as well as you are, Paul, and that can break down very, very, very easily, as can MD's mental health and the support networks. Paul, I can see, you mentioned my friends at Men Matter Scotland. Support networks are vital. And it's great to hear, you mentioning the support that Keith has given you, because sometimes that's all it takes is an individual that you can confide in. Bob talking about, having therapy, working and then finding that best fit. And it's, that's probably, I think, the most challenging thing for people is to find that best fit. And hopefully someone's always there to reach out. And I think that's the key. That's the journey that people need to find.
Yeah.
And
I've
Brian, sorry.
Sorry, I've mentioned.
Oh, you go, mate.
Sorry, Bob, where you go?
My own experience along with Paul, mate, we've been an active volunteer in the Men Matters thing, that guys walk in, mate, like anybody would deal with anything to do with their mental health, completely broken, empty, don't know what direction to walk in. And I've seen transformations in these guys within a couple of days, because everybody in the building has got something different, more horrific or less than anybody else's story, but it's all driven by that human emotion and what triggered it and planted the seed at the start. And the best medicine that you'll ever receive, mate, is speaking about it, opening up, stripping yourself to the bone and being honest with yourself, greeting, hugging, talking to the right people, making amends for your past, a whole array of stuff. But it's just, that's how you discover how and what's wrong with you. That's where your strength is. Your strength is in your weakness. And it's the key is to speak about it. And in that place, like we were speaking about tonight, you've got high profile football players, managers and stuff. They're in the public and the media eye. And if one thing wrong and he get crucified or praised for it, there is pressure. It comes with the job. It's got its advantages, but huge disadvantages when they're wearing that mask. Keith will identify that you hide for the world. And I'd done that for years, probably yourself, Keith, for the sake of the Waynes, your partner, everybody else. And I get fed up wearing it. And what's wrong with somebody in the public, a player or anything else, but people are watching, they're human beings the same as the rest of us. It doesn't matter your race, colour, creed, position in life, your finances. It breaks you just the same because it's a silent killer.
Yeah,
and
I think with a lot of high-profile people, that can sometimes be like a sword of Damocles for them. I mean, it must be so difficult. I mean, recently, with Ricky Hatton committing suicide, there was a guy who done a documentary. I think he was crying out in that documentary for support, and he mentioned on that at his height of his fame and winning world titles, when he lost to Floyd Mayweather, he felt like he was, such a loser, and which to me is just mind-boggling. But we can all identify that pain, that hurt is just sometimes in our own, and our own personal demons, as I always say. I don't know. You're all aware of the name Michael Phelps. I mean, Michael Phelps must be perhaps arguably the greatest swimmer ever, and yet post at every Olympics when he was winning all these medals, he was positively suicidal because he didn't see himself as a human being. That's what he said. He just saw himself as a swimmer, as a commodity, and they didn't have anybody that he could open up and just treat him as Michael and just, confide in. And what
Keith,
guys like football managers must be going through. Sorry, I'll let you in a minute. Russell Martin, that was the Rangers manager, having to get escorted to the side of a pitch. Goodness knows what the Celtic manager, Wilfred Nancy's going through. Peter Lawwell. Whether you agree with these guys, you don't, you want them sacked, you want them fired, it cannot be nice for their families. It cannot be nice for them.
Well said, Brian, as well. And that's just what I asked Keith as well before can I try to cut you off? Was Keith, what do you think about that as well that Brian was talking about there? Even Russell Martin, now we're starting to witness it with kind of Wilfried Nancy and obviously the board members at Celtic. The hatred and the messages that are flying about. What about you? What do you think about that?
Yeah, they're getting it from two ends, which is the mainstream media and obviously papers, and then they're getting it from social media now. I think the younger generation, because they have different social skills, it's quick enough for them to pick up a phone and criticize. Even the older generation, anyone like myself or anyone decades after me, we're quick enough to criticize. I think their job is to bring results. Their job is to stabilize and get the best out of their staff. And then clearly that's not happening on the football pitch. Like the likes of Russell Martin, he went in with this approach that, you know what, this is my personality, I'll do it my way. And I think it's very similarity to Wilfred Nancy. He's after coming over from America, and some people say, "Oh, is that stubbornness of because he's French and he speaks his way?" I think it's the abuse is too much. At the end of the day, we're quick enough to throw it out, but you don't realise that these are human beings. These have families. These have to go to bed. These need to put on their brave face going into to train, to conduct interviews. They have a lot of things on their plate. It's not just a simple they're out on a football pitch for 90 minutes. There's a logistics behind it. And it's the same way. It'd be the same with a pilot. Like if he's having a difficult time and he's getting abuse of certain way that he's gone through turbulence or he went too fast in that plane, people are going to criticize them and they're going to get complaints in, and then that's going to affect their minds. I just think mental health right now in the world is, as we all know, it's the biggest killer. It's the biggest killer in men. And I'd do anything in the world. If someone messaged me and said they're having a difficult time, I'm that type of person. I won't send you a long message back. I'll send you a voice clip because it's about passion. It's about showing people, you know what, regardless who you are, as Brian said, nationality, financial, what you have, it doesn't matter what you have. It's what you have in there is the prize. And if you can't maintain that and give that love, you need to help, and you have to tell yourself you need to help. And as much as we're stubborn people and we say, I'm okay, you just need that arm around. You just need to get that arm around you and start. Like, when I'll give you an example, in 2020, when I was at my lowest point, I went in the hospital. I tried to commit suicide. And my friend gave me one of the biggest motivation speeches of my life. And he said, I know right now you're numb. I know right now that the world feels awful and you feel like you feel like everything is coming around you. But what you have is yourself. And what you have right there across the road is a park. And see that park, if you walk around that park for a half an hour a day, you will feel better. What did I do? I walked around that park for 2.5 hours a day. And this sounds cringy. At the start, I listened to sad songs. Like, for example, Lose Capaldi, Before You Go. I wasn't sad that I was losing any relationships or losing a relationship with my kids. I was sad I was losing the relationship with myself. And I needed to find that new chapter. And once you get to that stage where you say, right, enough crying, enough BS, this is the right thing, this is the right platform, this is what you're gonna do. And if you can hit that, and you can hit that point in your life, I'm there at some level. You look back and you say, some people deal with indifference. As Brian was saying there, he's gone through so many different stages where the clinicians said, look, you've hit that red flag. But Brian, you know what? Fair play to open up about it, because it takes a lot of balls and it takes a lot of character. And then for you open up about that, you're giving people that tool, that motivation to say, right, maybe not extreme as Brian's circumstances, but that's giving me the right direction. He's gone through it. I can get through it. Fair play to you, man.
It's Bob. It's a brave one. I don't have Bob's bravery.
Apologies, Bob. BB. But fair, Bob, honestly, you're doing great, and you know what? And one thing I will say is fair play to you, because I work in the health service myself, and for you to say that resources is there where you're living just shows that these people are getting respect. They are getting the recognition they deserve. And I feel like what we've seen through a lockdown, and even now with this so-called super flu, the nurses are burnt out and they don't get the recognition.
Yeah.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And I think one thing, Keith, what you just said there, the nurses, professionals, the healthcare and all that, these guys are doing absolutely tremendous work. I spoke to Bob at the very beginning of his journey with Men Matter Scotland, and he would Bob, you were always kind of very, very fan of the staff and the nurses within the mental health and stuff like that, and how much they helped you, Bob. And that was something that, you know what, you're right, Bob, they don't get enough credit, don't they not, Bob?
No, mate, I was at that stage of my life, being in the ward. It could be a daunting experience for anybody. I was in there and I was completely emotionless. And I'll jump on it with Keith. I'll just jump off it. You said something there, Keith. The best thing you can do is learn to love yourself again, because you lose that emotion. I never recognised myself in a mirror at one point. I walk by windows now and I look in a shop and I catch my reflection. I'm not a Greek Adonis, mate, but I say to myself, you're doing all right, Bob.
Can I just say, you're looking well, by the way. You're looking well.
Mate, it's all out of tin, honestly. It's all out of tin. Do you know what it is, Brian? It's, I've had it all. I've done the marriage, the finances, the travelling, everything. And my mental health, mate, stripped me to nothing. A hot rock bottom, mate. I walked into a wee flat here that I'm eternally grateful for. Paul was with me that day, and the flat was empty, and so was I. And for 4 years, I've built on my flat, and I've built on me as well. And I'm happy and contented with what little I've got, mate. And I've got inner peace in amongst all that madness, mate. because I've worked hard. But it's a lovely people, Paul, yourselves, the services, they're all there, but you've got to work with them and have an understanding. These people are turning up and going into a psychiatric ward, mate. It is bedlam. It's like one flew out of the cuckoo's nest at time. They've got to deal with that and then switch your head back off and go home. What if they're having a shit day? You've got, like Keith says in that stage, you've got to put the face on and the mask on. Do you know what I mean?
You've both made a great point. Sorry, Bob, but you've both keeping yourself. I mean, we talk about high-profile people, and we are talking about, but during the COVID period and the super flu period, and talk about, you know, mental health workers, you know, they are superheroes. And when I think back to when people were stood outside applauding the nurses and the mental health workers and everything else, and that seemed to be quickly forgotten. And it's always something that these people, for me, they just cannot get enough praise, and they will also, and nobody ever really addresses the fact that they will have their own mental health issues. They will have their own mental health problems, and I hope they get the support that they need. It must be the most difficult role in the whole entire world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Keith, anything else, would you think?
Regards to sport.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm going to give you a story. For example, there's a lad that plays for Celtic now. He's from Canada, Alistair Johnson. He opened up about his mental health about 6 months ago to the Canadian press. And he said when he moved to Glasgow, it was overwhelming. He moved to the West End. He was walking down the road with his missus, walking the dog. People were constantly asking him for selfies. And I got to the stage where this was too much. He had to move out of Glasgow. It was getting overwhelming. It was affecting his mental health. It was affecting his sleep. And it's just crazy that regardless what you have, you will always have that battle in your head, which is good and bad on each shoulder. And regardless of how much money you have, it's not going to always make you happy. But you know what? For Alistair to open up about his mental health, not a lot of footballers do, and not a lot of professionals do, because they feel it's like everybody judged them wrong. Like, oh my God, he's a softie now. Oh my God, he's soft, what is he going to be like as a so-called leader on the pitch? But you know what? I am more honesty with people. I think I always say honesty is the best policy. If someone doesn't like me for who I am, for example, if I do a video on YouTube and if I put a post on and people give me abuse, I come around and say, well, if you don't like my opinion, don't follow me. If you don't like my opinion, just don't communicate with me. I'm not going to lose sleep over you unsubscribing. I'm going to tell you passionately how I feel as a person. And I've done it a couple of times where I've done videos where I have not spoke about football. And even as a football channel, I'll talk about my mental health. I'll talk about getting, like, I'll open up about this. And I don't really like talking about it, but when I became a Celtic fan, when I started doing all the social media stuff, I had a handful of people in Dublin that support Celtic all their lives, and they always looked down on me. They always tried to give me online abuse. They always tried to shame me. There was a point where I wanted to bring my daughter to Dublin, and my daughter to Glasgow, and bring her for a game, but I was at my lowest point where I had no money, and I was going to set up a GoFundMe page to get my daughter to Glasgow because I was embarrassed to talk to my mum and dad about it. And this guy made me look like an absolute crap. And funny enough, I seen him 4 weeks ago for the first time in 6 years, and I turned around and goes to him, who's laughing now? I'm over here. I have an amazing woman. I'm consistent with my kids. I go back and forth all the time, and I put this effort into this football club. Who are you laughing at now? And he couldn't actually thank me for what I've done.
Yeah.
I mean, Keith, we also had, you probably know him, Paul John Dykes was on an episode.
Know Paul well, yeah.
And we've had Paul, we've bumped into Paul many times, and Paul's an absolute great guy. And he's starting to get some serious abuse. One guy actually put a thing on my Twitter, and I just blocked him. But it was a sort of no entry sign with Paul's face on it, which I found unbelievable. And me and Paul Quinn got an interesting conversation with a chap. Was that last Friday or the Friday before?
I think it was Friday.
who'd never met Paul John Dykes, but thought it fine just to give this guy absolute abuse because he was given, honest opinions on football on a podcast.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just defies belief. People just like to hate and like to create, and maybe
100%. They're built like that. They're miserable sallies that look out the window, and it's like the old person looking out the window back in the day, but that's them on the phone now. And you know what? Paul John has done a lot of things. He's built his empire of his podcasts, his contributors. He's done fundraising nights. He's helped charities. He's brought out books. He's done really good things. And I've met Paul John twice, and I felt the second time I met him in Greenock for a show. He told me and he said to me, I want to communicate with you more. I want to get to know you more. And that just shows that there is genuine people out there. You can put the face on the camera, but at the end of the day, like, he's after building something for himself. That person that's criticizing, what have they achieved? What they've achieved? Absolutely sweet nothing, So I think it's quick enough. The world is becoming so more nasty now, where people are criticized quick enough, but they never praise. No one never turns around and says, "Well done." It's like football. When a footballer is playing, he passes the ball wrong, straight away. But you never get that encouragement where people clap and say, "Come on, you can do it." You need a bit more of that. That's what you need. Is it like in everything? You need that arm around you. You need that support. It's not about sports, it's in general.
Keith, did you see the comments by young Luke McCowan, which I felt really... I mean, Alan Thompson in his book, just to digress for a second, his book about his mental health struggles is really powerful. And I was at a Paul John Dykes, actually, Celtic State of Mind event, where Alan Thompson on stage started to discuss his mental health problems just as a human being, and about the need, as Bob was saying, about, reaching out, talking to people, getting a network. And he had a really difficult, tough time, even though he was at the height of his career. But young Luke McCowan saying during the week, he now plays with Celtic. He's now realising his dream, but because it's a difficult time, he feels he can't even speak to his friends and his family that he's had his whole life.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Like that, I remember when that guy signed, and he was like in a euphoria zone, and but it's absolutely horrible that, like, your passion, your pride, and people are looking down on you. But I hope the club give him the right resources, and you just even having that phone call or a occupational health and having chat with someone. It's just shocking the way it's done. It's shocking across everywhere. It's just like people look at these footballers as robots. They're human beings. Even when they're making a move from, say, France to England, people think, "Oh, our boys sell." It's not that. There's logistics of the family's education, moving them there, visas involved. It's like
that must be so difficult for people moving. I mean, the football player Nicky
Look
Butt,
at Shane Duffy. Shane Duffy's a prime example. Shane Duffy got absolute abuse from Celtic fans, and he was called everything under the sun. But people didn't realise two things about Shane Duffy. He lost his dad 3 months before that. He moved to Celtic, and he was stuck in a hotel. This is why he cut his move to Celtic earlier, because his mental health went boom. And it just shows that, like, when people are down, give them the harm, give them the support. You can't always write them off. If something's not right and you can see it on the pitch, or you can see it in the stands that guy's not there. You just even try even put a banner out saying it's okay not to be okay.
And as Paul, as you were saying, it's not just, football players, it's people high profile in every area, and some of history's biggest figures. I mean, Abraham Lincoln in his diaries talks about his difficulties with severe depression. Winston Churchill famously referred to as his black dog. Bill Clinton. I mean, sorry, I laugh because Bill done a few things they shouldn't have been. And but at night, one of his advisors said he used to just, when he was in a room himself, crawl up into the embryo position, or embryonic position, I think was how it was described. And he was at that moment the most powerful man in the world, the leader of the Western world, or however they call the American president, and he was, just his mental health, and that was before Monica Lewinsky. I should add.
I'm going to give you the quote, right? I use this quote all the time, and I use this all the time. This is how this gave me the motivation to move from one country to another country when I was at one of my lowest points. The fear is worse than the regret. So if you can sit there and you eat yourself up and you don't do nothing about that, you're going to look back and you're gonna regret that for the rest of your life. And what I mean tackling that is take the chance. Take the chance. You gotta be fearless. Because if you're not fearless, you're gonna regret it. Simple.
Exactly. I wish I'd heard that 30 years ago. I wish I'd heard that 30 years ago. I'll be a tattoo on my back, mate. Thank you.
you can still get it done if you want. And share. Look, and I'll say that to Bob as well. Like, fair play to you. Like, as I said, you opening up is a story to help others. Stories will never get boring in life. Motivational stories like that will never get boring.
You know what it is,
Bob,
mate?
I'm going to Bob, before you kick off, Bob. Sorry to cut you off here. Bob, I want you to. We're going to try and finish this off, right? But Bob, you were right, and as much as I'm going to say thank you to Keith in a minute before we finish, and thank you to Brian, Bob, I want you to give me magic, give me some passion, give me some inspiration, mate, because that you're full of them. Put pressure now on you, Bob.
I don't know, mate. I got a thing the other day. There was women in that charity, Man Matters. Just a quick one. This will work with it. They come in and they were youth project workers for young laddies, adolescents that had severe mental health to keep them out of the prison system, and things that's happened in their past and traumas brought them to where they are. They come into our charity to interviews, sat on a podcast, and they asked a question, and this is gold. Now knowing what you know in your life and what you've came through, what would you tell your younger 12 to 16-year-old self to make a difference so that you never got to where you were today? And the biggest thing, mate, is communication. If you can't talk about it, how can you get help? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really, mate, you need to speak about it, don't you? And doing this here, the Green Sunrise, like Keith says there, mate, I'd stand and use it 10 and tell my story, and it would shock people. People don't want to hear it, but I'm living proof, mate. I'm live life experience that this is what it's like. At times I don't understand it. At times I've ended up in the hospital because I'm crying out for help. At times I've asked to put in to keep myself and the public safe. It's that when you were away and see when you needed a cuddle, you wanted it, didn't you? See when you put your hand up automatically, somebody took your hand, didn't it? I had to put my hand up and say I need help. Somebody help me. Somebody hold on to me and say, Bob, it's going to be all right, mate. It's just going to be all right. But you need to be able to understand what's wrong with you. You need to be able to speak about it. You need to be able to no bother about anybody judging you, because it doesn't matter. What right have we got in this world to criticise somebody like a football player and vile? It's nice to vent for 90 minutes, mate, but what right have we got as human beings? What's happened to compassion? That you vile comments to somebody that affects them that bad. And that's
Bob, you are an inspiration, Bob. I just want to say you are an inspiration.
This is a quote. I always say this to people, right? And I stand by my morals and my belief. I always say, you're either dragged up or you're raised up. And if you're raised up, I always say to myself, I'm very grateful for the way my mum and dad raised me up. Manners is the biggest tool in life. Manners and communication. You don't have them two tools, you ain't going nowhere in life.
Yeah.
And of course, compassion as well.
Yeah. Boys, we're going to get there. I just want to say thank you to yourself, Brian. Thank you for giving me your Friday night. And for your last minute substitution, my man, coming in. thank you so much, Bob and Brian. But thank you so much, man, for today's episode. Keith from Cmon the Hoops. Thank you so much, mate.
Of course, of course. I love being
Boys,
on.
see you later on.
Take
Have a
care of
nice-
yourselves.
Have a nice
Have a good
Christmas,
one.
everyone.
Cheers, boy. Thanks.
Take
Thanks,
it
boy.
easy.
And that's
Right,
right.
boy.
If you're out there, you're struggling. I'll so big myself on the screen here. Just a last wee note, if you're struggling, I've mentioned a couple of the things at the bottom of the Andy's Man Club, and you've also got Men Matter Scotland. They're just two men, Glasgow and elsewhere, obviously. See locations for hashtag Andy's Man. And obviously they've all got websites. If you're looking, you're struggling, please contact these services and these organisations. They are you. They do want to know. And like I say, thank you, boys, for tonight. Have a blessed Christmas, and see you later on.
You
Thank
too,
you,
boy.
Paul.
God
Thank you
bless,
very
lad.
much,
God
lads.
bless.
All the best. Cheers.
You take care,
Right,
lads. Bye.
Bye, mate.
Boys, that was that.
Brilliant.
Bob,
Thank you so much. No,
things
Bob,
Bob,
you're looking well. Have you lost a wee bit of weight? Or?
Ryan, 2 stone, mate.
Aye, you look fantastic. I didn't
Changing
want to say that when we were live in case you weren't like, no, I've not
No.